Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to r/ProRevenge, where you'll get to hear stories about people getting what they deserve in life. Guys, do I have a revenge-filled episode for you today? Of course, because it's called ProRevenge, right? The first story, a Karen takes on the role of management and uses OP as her scapegoat. The second story, OP's fiancé decides to have an affair due to his cancer diagnosis. And we'll finish off with a shady landlord who sues OP over damages that a hurricane causes. Yikes. Guys, I hope you stay for the stories today and do hit that subscribe button for future revenge tales. If you guys like this kind of stuff, let's dive in. I used to work in a marketing role in a government department. I was part-time and worked along with a girl who I'll call Karen, who was working on a yearly contract. She had been there for 2 years and was very friendly with the department manager, and this was the reason her contract kept being renewed. When my manager went on mat leave, Karen got temporarily promoted to the management role. This caused a lot of upset in the office, as there were a number of more suitable and qualified people who didn't get the chance to act up. As soon as Karen became my manager, everything changed. My workload increased, and as I was part-time, I had to absolutely bust my butt to meet project deadlines. All of a sudden, I wasn't being included in staff briefs on new projects, yet was expected to work on them. My department manager was acting really off with me too, and was always mad at me. This went on for months, before I approached my department manager and asked to discuss my workload, etc. She sat me down and basically told me that I really needed to get my act together, as Karen was having to pick up my workload, fix my mistakes, yada yada yada, and it was affecting her output because I was, in Karen's words, so lazy that I should be fired. I told the manager what was going on and the actual work I was doing, but she took Karen's side and said I was just assisting with some parts of projects, and it was ridiculous of me to claim that I was managing and completing so many projects on my own. So I started making mistakes, simple things, adding wrong briefs for designers, not including prices, adding incorrect budgets and deadlines that were 2 days out, etc. Karen started getting pulled by various managers, asking why she was making so many mistakes. Then I knew for sure that she was passing off my work as her own. She called me in for a meeting and exploded, and I basically walked out. She began yelling and complaining about me to teammates, saying how lazy I was, etc., and my friends began to tell me what was going on. One friend told me that Karen was online for an average of 5 hours a day, planning her upcoming wedding in Spain, and was using the office phones to make international phone calls to wedding planners. He could see her screen and couldn't believe how lazy she was. She was planning her wedding while I was busting my ass off. So I decided to skip talking to the managers and went straight to HR. I told them to have an IT monitor her internet usage and her outgoing calls. I said I could prove that she was a good-for-nothing employee and was relying on me. I was obviously able to show email trails and the project documents I'd completed that she had then taken and saved as her own. 2 weeks later, Karen was called to HR and told that her contract was not being renewed, and she was given 1 month's notice. She told everyone it was because of budget cuts. My department heads brought me in for meetings to apologize and to commend me for my excellent work, and I got a promotion. I left a couple of months later. If they'd believed me in the first place, I wouldn't have endured so many months of stress and anxiety. OP did the right thing by leaving. That workplace seems like a very toxic place that plays favorites. I have a bunch of Karens at my work too. They don't do the work, blame others for mistakes, and spend all day shopping on Amazon. My fiancé and I dated for 4 years, and I thought I had what was a great relationship. We were both well-established professionals who both owned homes in the same neighborhood and both with daughters in the home. Her daughter was 11 and mine was 16 when we met. We had actually planned to get married, build a house, and raise the two together. We planned the house build because she had recently been diagnosed with a neurological disease that would eventually put her in a wheelchair. During the planning stages, I began doing landscape and construction projects on her home to increase the resale value. All in, I invested roughly $30,000 into the home, running everything through my side construction business for tax, permitting, and resale purposes. We had a contract that payment would be made upon the sale of the home. I produced invoices for each and every project, but never pushed for payments because of the prior agreement. Fast forward 6 months. We're looking at property to develop and finalizing drawings on the home when I began feeling ill. I couldn't eat, was constantly vomiting and passing blood. I began noticing that my abdomen looked swollen, which was odd because we were both very clean eaters and were in the gym every day. So I went to the doctor and began having tests done. During this time, she began having small cognitive issues, and the stress of her current position was exacerbating her condition, so she took a $20,000 per annum cut in pay, along with a lesser position inside the company. After about a month or so of different tests and a biopsy, it came back that I had a golf ball-sized tumor in my stomach and would need to begin chemotherapy. So I began chemotherapy and radiation treatments, which made me expectedly so extremely ill. She was spending time helping around my place on the weekends and staying over more, to the point that they were both in my home more than theirs. At this point, I suggested that we go ahead and put one of our houses on the market and move in together until the new house was built. I have great supplemental insurance, as well as a long-term illness plan, so using that, coupled with the sale of our houses, would push us through comfortably and help ease the financial stress on her. Shortly after the discussion, she became extremely distant. Her daughter wasn't coming down and hanging out with mine anymore, and she had excuses for not getting together. She quit driving me to treatments and stopped staying over. She then dropped a bomb, a sentence that will forever be burned into my psyche. She said, "I love you, but I can't see myself taking care of someone that's sick in the long term. I don't think we should see each other any longer." She said that in a text. It broke me, I won't lie. This was the first woman that I've ever opened up to and planned a life with since my wife died. However, I tried to be mature about it. I forced myself to understand her position and to accept what I could not change. I calmly the next day gathered all of her things, packed them up neatly, loaded them in my truck, and took them to her house to leave on the back porch while she was at work, in order to avoid any awkward exchanges. Walking around the back and under the porch cover, I sat down a box and saw her in the back living room on the couch, naked with a man that she had introduced me to as a lifelong friend. I had dinner and drinks with this man and his girlfriend. We had gone on vacation with them as well. I never spoke of the incident with her and simply sent her a text later, explaining that I would leave her things on my side porch to pick up at her convenience. I discovered 8 or 9 months later from his now ex-girlfriend that they had broken up due to him confessing that he had been sleeping with my significant other. This dated back to about the time we were finishing drawings on the new home. At this point, I had finished chemo and radiation for the time being and was feeling healthier. I was going through some much neglected paperwork when I ran across the file that contained $32,680 in unpaid, long overdue invoices, which were promptly sent to my attorney to begin lien proceedings on the home. It turns out that I couldn't have done this a moment too soon because she was set to put her house on the market. Coupled with the interest over the course of 19 months overdue, the invoices were hefty. That, along with the agreement of settling them when the house was sold and the attorney fees, left her roughly about $10,000 after the sale of the home and settling her current mortgage. She promptly had to back out of the purchase of another home and moved in with her oldest daughter and 2 grandchildren. She also had to leave her job and begin receiving disability. I ran into her a little over a year ago, and she looked as if she'd aged 20 years and was in a wheelchair that we talked about. We chatted cordially, but briefly, and I excused myself and went on with my day. My ex then called me a week or so later and began apologizing for leaving me as she did. Again, cordial but short. I thanked her for calling and hung up. She began texting, and this went on for several weeks until one day, she asked if I could ever see us rekindling what we had, to which I replied, "I can't see myself taking care of someone so sick in the long term. Remember that box in your back porch? Did you think that your lifelong friend brought that over to you from my house? Good luck to you. Goodbye." So, for those of you who are wondering, judging from the comments that OP left, OP's been cancer-free for 2 years now and living a very happy life. His fiancé, however, went from being a marathon runner to being wheelchair-bound, all in the span of 8 years due to her disease. With that said, I do wish both of them the best life they can possibly live. Let me know in the comments down below if you think she deserved everything she got. I lived in Florida around 10 years ago, which is where I met my partner. It wasn't long after we met that we moved in together. Due to my not so great living situation, renting a room from a friend who was so addicted to opioids that she could barely function. We found a little nice 2-bedroom house that was owned by an elderly couple that lived just a few blocks away. Everything was okay. We did find cockroaches after we moved in, which was quite shocking as I'm extremely clean and had never had roaches before. And when we told the landlords, they told us they were not roaches, but palmetto bugs, and refused to have an exterminator come in. Bad sign number 1. Then, a hurricane blew in. This was Florida, after all. It was only a Category 1 or a Category 2. I don't really remember, but there was substantial damage to the roof and a lot of water had gotten in. New to the area, we had no real idea how to prepare, and the landlords just told us to lower the hurricane shutters, so that's all we did. It wasn't long after that we had mold growing on our walls, especially in the laundry room. I reported it to the landlords, and they told us just to wash it down with bleach water. So we did, and it came back right after, so it was a constant cleaning process. When we complained, we were told that that's what life in Florida was like. They also came down to take a look at the roof, and from the yard they told us, "You two are strapping young men. You can go up there and fix it. Just let us know when you're done." Then another hurricane blew through. Again, only a Category 1 or Category 2. But this time, we had the windows broken during the storm, and since our roof was still not repaired or even tarped from our last storm, our carpets and furniture was soaked. Here comes the black mold again, but this time, not only on our walls, but on the carpets and furniture too. I spent the days outside with our dog, and we were sleeping in my partner's office. Our landlords again told us to just clean it with bleach water and that the damage was our fault since we did not prepare well and hadn't fixed the roof ourselves. So we called the city and had an inspector come by. He walked in and balked at what he found. Black mold was all over the carpets and the walls. The roach population had a little boom, and he could tell that while looking at the roof, that it was in need of repair prior to the storm. The best part is, when I was standing at our open door with the inspector inside, the old man came up talking about how we better have repaired the roof and how they were going to charge us for all the repairs and the carpet replacements and the mold removal, yada yada yada. Cue the city worker who came around the corner and asked him if he was the owner. He said yes, and the inspector told him that he was condemning the house because it was not habitable, and that it was not our responsibility as tenants to make or pay for the repairs. He also recommended that we should be released from the lease. Never seen an old man wobble away so fast. Later that night, his wife called, raising high holy hell about how she was suing us for damages, how we were not getting any money back, blah blah blah. She also said that she removed the condemned and danger signage that was placed on the door because it was embarrassing people that knew it was their property. But she made a mistake. She wrote us a strongly worded letter about how we were taking advantage of the elderly, how all the damages were our fault since we didn't do any repairs, and how she would not release us from the lease, and how many lawsuits she was going to hit us with. After contacting the inspector who saw our house, who took another trip to the house to replace the signage, we turned all of this in. He laughed and sighed and said he knew exactly how to handle it since he saw this stuff all the time after hurricanes. He also said if they actually sued, that he would testify in our favor since what they were doing was highly illegal. About a week later, we got a really pleasant call from the landlady saying that we were such wonderful tenants and how she was refunding our security deposit and how she was graciously going to let us out of the lease and not pursue any charges, and if we need help finding a new place, to let her know. We did learn, because we were watching the situation, that the house had to be gutted and completely remodeled. We actually parked up the road with some takeout and watched the crew haul out the sheetrock and the carpet. They could have saved themselves thousands if they had just called a roofer and someone to clean up the mold instead of making us call the city and having the house condemned. Still, I wish I could have been there when they were confronted by the inspectors the second time, as the first time was glorious. I love that part about eating takeout and watching the repairs. Guys, what's up with landlords being freaking sociopaths and having no respect for tenants? I feel like that's such a common thing to happen to people. My friends, and that brings us to another end of our /ProRevenge. Guys, if you missed the last episode of ProRevenge, a greedy landlord mocks OP's mother's death and gets absolutely destroyed. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.